This is a Phaco done in a primary angle closure glaucoma with several attacks of acute angle closure. He's already had inferior Yag iridotomy. He's got a minimal cataract but a very shallow AC. This is how he went about performing his cataract extraction. So here initially you can see that there is some synechia at one quadrant. Extensive pupil is pretty well dilated. I go ahead and very carefully put in my keratome and side port incisions. Remember, the AC is so shallow and the lens looks like it's just bulging forward, probably slightly looks intumescent and even sort of subluxated forwards. So after the incisions, I go ahead, put in HPMC and initially separate the synechia with a blunt Sinski hook. And that's easily done. I then take my cystitome. As you can see, it is so shallow to be very careful even how to place the cystitome. And initially I thought this is the problem, sometimes things don't go as you plan. Thought this would be an easy rhexis. Easy in the sense I could manage it with the cystitome, but when I approached towards my incision itself, I realized it was very tough because the AC was just too shallow to manage. In fact, I could not go through the paracensis again. I decided to go from the main incision and try to continue my rhexis. That I decided then to give up on that and use my Uthrata forceps instead. And that is obviously worked well, but the rhexis was on a tad bit on the smaller side, and even this was very difficult to achieve. In fact, I had to take my micro forceps and complete. So just to show how important it is to have all these various instruments. And in fact, I again went back to my Uthrata and completed the rhexis. Thinking that the rhexis is too small, I decided to scallop it, and this proved to be extremely difficult to control. And after several attempts, which are not shown here actually, I finally managed to get one scallop. You can see there it's gone a little outwards, but it's complete. And then I decided might as well do another one on the other side as well, both for extent as well as for symmetry. And this time I used my micro rhexis forceps. It was then that I went ahead and did my hydrodissection. You can see the fluid waves going completely. I made sure that the nucleus rotated freely. I didn't want to get stuck. This is a soft cataract, and these cataracts in a shallow AC can give a lot of problems. So just rotating, and it's rotating well, making sure I don't get any heartburn later. Now I put in some little higher molecular weight HPMC. It's not exactly viscose. I'm taking a Sinski hook in my left hand and my Phaco probe in my right. I first aspirate the superficial cortex, and my plan is to do a stop and chop. This is not hard enough to be chopped directly, so I'm not even going to attempt it. And when you do a stop and chop, make sure that you get an adequate trench. Do not do shallow trenches and then try to crack it. You will make a mess of the whole thing. So have patience, widen the tunnel, go deeper, and make sure, don't be in a hurry to crack it. Make sure you rotate, sculpt from the other side as well, so you get an adequate trench. And watch the red reflex and the splaying of the cortical fibers. Once I think I have adequate, go towards the periphery and try to separate. There you have the crack. Once the crack comes, life is much easier. And don't try to take off the piece now itself. Rotate it and crack from the other side as well. And that's done. Just put some HPNC and rotating the nuclei into more accessible position. And initially, see, this is a wrong area to go in. I'm trying to go into the center and then realized and went from the periphery. And that's much better. Immediately the heminuclei comes out. So soft you can just eat it up. And the second one also I don't bother to rotate it. It just fractures on its own and it's eaten up. So any other, there's a small epinucleus bit there, managed to take that out as well. And I come out and use my bimanual and completely sweep across all the fornices of the capsular bag and remove all cortical material. Remember, in these cases, most of the time, the posterior capsule is convex, with the convexity facing towards you. So do not turn your port backwards. Don't turn it posteriorly. It can easily give way, your posterior capsule, and then it becomes really difficult. So just take out sheets of these and aspirate. And just switch hands to go to the other side. You can appreciate the rexus much better now. It's not a perfect anything, but it will do. Then under HPMC, I decide to go ahead and put in a 3-piece IOL. And these IOLs are extremely difficult to handle. They just don't listen to your commands. So I was thinking of putting it into the bag in a orientation away from the long axis of the rexus, but look what happens. It just goes exactly where I don't want it to go. So I just pull it back with my Sinski hook, and I get in the other. Remember the AC is shallow as well. I get in my other haptic, place it over the iris on the other side, and I'm not very happy. I know that, I'm not very sure of the extent of my rexus margin on that side, so I decide better to push this haptic into the sulcus rather than in the bag. I changed my plan in between and here, and it's not easy because the AC is so shallow. So I have literally pushed it against the posterior surface of the iris and let it drop into the sulcus. And now for the other side, it's gone in there, just making sure it is not over. I put in the other haptic also into the sulcus, not shown here I think, pulling down the iris. Some of the pupil is fixed and dilated as it was right from the beginning. I then pull out my HPMC. And again I am not too satisfied with this position, so I decide to once again push in some HPMC, and I am putting in actually pilocarpine now first, trying to bring down the pupil and see how it goes. Not happening, it's just not reacting, so I just put in some HPMC once again into the chamber, and this time what I am doing is trying to bring down that pupil. You can see the iridectomy, Yag iridotomy down there inferiorly. And I am now capturing the optic into the rhexis margins. Here again I am tapping it back into place, taking out the HPMC, and pulling this iris is of twofold. One is to bring it over the IOL, and next is to break any synechia. And with that I put in my intracameral antibiotic, hydrate the wounds, and conclude my surgery. Thank you for watching.